Good evening and welcome to the East Gippsland Shire Council meeting of Tuesday the 21st of July 2026. Council meetings are live streamed, recorded and published via webcasting. These recordings are available for viewing by the public by following the link on Council's website. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record Council meetings unless approval has been granted by the Chair. If technical difficulties are experienced with live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If issues can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later day or time. Council acknowledges the traditional owners and custodians of this land and pays deep respects to all First Nations peoples and communities with enduring cultural connections to East Gippsland who have cared for and nurtured country for tens of thousands of years. We honour and celebrate the rich diversity, living cultures and ongoing contributions of all First Nations people who live, work, visit and play across East Gippsland. We also acknowledge the many First Nations communities who together continue to shape and continue to contribute to the region we know as East Gippsland, the place where we as local government deliver services and support our community. In line with the Local Government Act, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person. When participating in a meeting electronically, a councillor can only be recorded as present when they confirm that the following criteria is met. 1, they can hear proceedings and can be heard by other members in attendance, and 2, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members. Councillor Buckley, can you see and hear us?
Yes, Mayor.
And can you confirm that you're participating from a private location suitable for confidential discussions if required?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
Thank you. If a councillor participating online experiences technical difficulties, we may adjourn briefly to enable them to rejoin the meeting. Should they be unable to reconnect within 5 minutes, the meeting shall resume in their absence. Item 1.2 on the agenda is apologies, and I note that Councillor Barry Davis has been granted a leave of absence for this meeting. We now move to item 1.3, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors are reminded that the Local Government Act requires conflicts of interest to be disclosed in accordance with the procedures set out in the governance rules. This includes stating the 3 following points. 1, the item for which you have a conflict. 2, whether the conflict of interest is general or material. And 3, an explanation of why the conflict exists. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest for tonight's meeting? Okay, thank you, councillors. I see none. We'll now proceed to item 1.4. The minutes of the previous meeting, so confirmation of the meeting held on Tuesday the 23rd of June 2026, which have been circulated to you. I trust you've all had the opportunity to review them. Do I have a mover to confirm the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Allen, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Travascus. And Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. The minutes as presented are a true and accurate record of that meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. And Councillor Travascus, would you like to speak to the motion?
I agree with Councillor Allen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? No? I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The next council meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday the 18th of August 2026 at the Corporate Centre, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Item 1.6 is request for leave of absence. CEO, do we have any requests?
Thank you, Mayor. I've received no requests.
Thank you. Okay. At this point in the proceedings, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge a couple of special guests in the public gallery this evening. We've got Kobe from St Mary's and Rachel from Swan Reach Primary School joining us tonight as part of the Rotary Junior Community Award program. The The Rotary Junior Community Award is a broad program that encourages students to actively engage in their local community. In addition to attending a community meeting like this one, participants complete community service over a school term, take part in physical recreation, learn a new skill, and experience different aspects of community life, such as a cultural, environmental, artistic, and commemorative event. The program is designed to help young people build confidence, understand how their community works, and develop a sense of responsibility and civic awareness. Their attendance at tonight's council meeting contributes to that requirement and provides an opportunity to see local democracy in action. Your participation in this community program is commendable, and we're delighted to have you observing our meeting tonight and to recognise your involvement and commitment to learning about your community. I've got a little pin to present to each of you, so if you'd like to come forward. We'll now move on to open forum, and 1.7.1 is petitions. CEO, do we have any petitions for tonight's meeting?
We have one, Mayor, and I'll ask our Acting General Manager of Business Excellence to come forward and present that, please.
Thank you, CEO. Council has received a petition from Head Petitioner Mr Graham Devison. The petition contains 315 signatories and petitions Council as follows. We, the undersigned, hereby petition East Gippsland Shire Council to reject the proposed master plan for the Omeo Justice Precinct and Civic Centre. Councillors have been provided with a full copy of the petition separately. In respect of the privacy of the signatories and in accordance with the Privacy and Data Protection Act 2014, a copy of the petition will not be displayed on the screen. The petition meets the requirements of Council's Governance Rule 8.7. Accordingly, it has been approved for presentation to Council by the Chief Executive Officer. And just before I hand back to you, Mayor, I'll pass over to the CEO for updated comment on this matter.
Thank you, Phil. Councillors, whilst we received the petition today, I also had received an email from the Head Petitioner letting me know that the petition was instigated on the 10th of June. And since then, they have had a meeting with officers around the master plan and are much more comfortable with the process that we're going through, and believes that there is an opportunity to understands that there's an opportunity now for continued changes to the master plan. It was not as set as they'd seen it originally. So he wanted me to let me know that whilst they were still presenting the petition, it was really to allow councillors to understand the importance with which the community held the Justice Precinct, the Omeo Justice Precinct, and that he was confident that we were working well together with the community and with himself and the Omeo Historical Society to reach really good outcomes. So given that, we will still bring a report back to Council, but we will bring it back as part of the overall presentation of the master plan to Council for formal consideration. And I would like to thank the Omeo Historical Society for firstly developing a petition, which is of course their democratic right, but also for the update, and since they've met with officers, the update and the slight change in their view about how the process is unravelling or not. In this case, it's just proceeding. So thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our Acting General Manager.
Thank you. So we'll move on to...
So we have to move.
Councillors, there is a recommendation displayed on the screen, so I'll now call on a councillor to move a motion. Oh, thank you, Councillor Buckley. And a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just briefly to say that It certainly activated local people. It just shows how important our halls are and how much historical value they have in regards to the local people. It's a place where we meet, where we gather, where we create memories. And it's also heartening to know that the Historical Society are now taking positive steps forward to ensure that the master plan and the precinct is in good hands and moves forward with community support. There's a lot more work to do, and I look forward to seeing that happen. So I put this motion to councillors to support. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to item 1.7.2, questions of council. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that when making your address, you show courtesy and respect to the council, its staff and the processes we follow. We also ask that you take direction from the chair whenever requested. During public questions, there will be no discussion or debate with attendees. As chair, I may need to stop a question or submission if it's deemed inappropriate or not in line with council's governance rules or the Mutual Respect Charter. Each person addressing council is allocated a maximum of 5 minutes speaking time. And we have a total of 2 public questions for tonight's meeting. And this, yep. Okay. Welcome, Mr. Weatherall.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you, councillors and staff, for the opportunity to...
Did you want to sit down? Because you've got 5 minutes. Yeah.
I'm here tonight along with Darren Downey on my left, representing the Bringing the Coolip Home Committee from Orbost. The committee consists of a small number of highly focused individuals with the common aim of returning the Coolip to Orbost, with the aim to set the boat up as a static display on an appropriate site in part of the Forest Park. I'll call it a tourist precinct. It's an informal tourist precinct of Orbost. And the site that we're looking at, we understand will come up for sale later this year, and the latest advice is that will be possibly October. The key objectives of the display are as follows. We want to refurbish it to a static display standard only. There's no question of putting it back on the water. There will be a theme created around it of riverside environment, and we're thinking that we'll have it tied up to an artificial wharf with aquatic landscape vegetation around it. There's also talk of river water murals. There will be public viewing from the wharf only. It's intended to be a large identification wall at the front of the property, and include a series of storyboards tying the display to the history of Orbost. And this opens up a scope for storytelling and guided tours at some future time, tying together other elements of Forest Park. And we hope that it will create a situation. The plan is to create a situation of interest that encourages tourists to stay for longer in the Orbost area. Finance, the committee is mindful of the money required to implement this project and has a number of ideas to put into train, which I won't go into detail at the moment. But significantly, the committee is mindful of the ongoing costs associated with projects of this nature, and that might include ongoing maintenance of boat and site, utility rates and charges, insurance, etc., that come up on an annual basis. And we would like to establish an upfront reserve that could be drawn on in the future to cover these costs. But the committee at the moment is starting from what we call ground zero, and we really need help to start the process off. There are 3 key immediate requirements identified that are needed to initiate the proposal. The committee is confident if external funding can be provided for these 3 elements, the committee believes that it will be able to complete the project with in its own resources, and I mean from other fundraising activities that it's planning. So the 3 elements that we're looking at that we believe we need assistance with is acquisition of the land to home the curlew. Secondly, transporting the curlew back to Orbost. And thirdly, placing a protective canopy or a shed structure over the boat to minimise future deterioration. And that brings us to the questions we are placing before Council tonight. And the first question is Council still of the opinion that the curlew should not be sited on Council-owned land? And that came from a Council resolution of a couple of years ago, at least. I remember seeing that. And then the second question is, what financial contribution is Council able and willing to make to this project?
Thank you, Mr Witherell. I'll just invite Mr McConnell, General Manager of Assets Environment, to respond. Thank you. Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. So, in relation to the first question, we, or Council, initiated a public expression of interest process, as you know, early last year, and one of the conditions of that was a condition that the vessel, if someone was expressed interest in the vessel, that not be relocated to council land. And the key reason in relation to that was management of risks and liabilities. That was the key things around that. I note the vessel has previously been located on public land in Bairnsdale, and council incurred significant costs relocating the vessel, both firstly to fabricate a cradle for it to sit in, and then the actual crane and truck transport costs when the vessel had outstayed its approved time on that public land in the foreshore, and the responsible group was not able to relocate it at that time. So yeah, for those reasons, that's why we included a condition in that expression of interest that it not be relocated to council land. In relation to the second question about financial contribution, so council doesn't have provision for financial support of this project in its current budget. Any support would need to be considered along with other requests we get for community projects and support of that kind, and most likely that would be through our community grants program, so that would be possibly a route for that. I know the current vessel is a replica of the original, and it has been the subject of significant public funding over the years as part of that original project. Back some years, council provided $30,000 for the business case associated with some of that work, and as I said before, council also incurred some significant costs more recently in the relocation of the vessel from the Bairnsdale foreshore. So yeah, council has contributed funds into this area before, and again, any support would need to be considered along with the various other requests we get from community groups. So the community grants program might be a key opportunity for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr McConnell, and thank you, Mr Wetherall, for your questions tonight. Thanks very much. Thanks. Yeah. Okay.
To ask questions on questions, but I think there's a point of clarification we would allow it on this page, given how far our two presenters have come this evening.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay.
It's actually to Stuart.
Oh.
The cradle we had built,
Yeah.
we still have it?
Thanks, Councillor Farquhar, and through you, Mayor. We do still have the cradle because, in fact, the vessel is still sitting in the cradle.
As a start?
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I put a question to Stan? Stan, the land you're talking about, the possibility of someone owning it, council or someone. The story in Orbost, of course, that's around is that it's contaminated area. Could you give us any clarification on that? Thank you.
Well, my investigations into that is that it is not contaminated. I've been in touch with the EPA and they have no record on file of any contamination there at all.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Weatherall. Thanks, Ms. McConnell.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to item 1.7.3, public submissions, and there are none for tonight's meeting. Item 1.8 is items for noting, and there are no items to be tabled for tonight's meeting. Item 2 on the agenda is notices of motion, and there are none for tonight's meeting. Item 3 is deferred business, and again, we have none. Item 4 is councillor delegate reports. Councillors, I'd encourage you to submit your written reports for inclusion in the minutes. We'll now move on to reports, officers' reports from Assets and Environment. The first report is item 5.1.1, which is East Gippsland Livestock Exchange Commercial Review, the final report. And General Manager, Assets and Environment, Mr. McConnell, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report presenting to you a summary final outcome of what has been an extensive review of the operations at the East Gippsland Livestock Exchange, with a particular focus on what the operating model ought to be for this facility. The work commenced in 2024. It's involved really significant engagement with key stakeholders, agents, but also the broader farming community have had their opportunity to contribute to this. And the focus of that was to make sure that the Livestock Exchange continues to provide the services that are required for the farming community in East Gippsland, and in that context it's an important part of the economic infrastructure in East Gippsland. Importantly, that independent analysis and the community engagement both provided some strong evidence in support of retaining the current model, which is council direct management of the sale yards. It found that fundamentally the operating model was sound, but it also identified a whole range of opportunities for improvement within the operations of the sale yards, and some of that work to implement those improvements as some of it's been done and some of it is continuing to be underway. So whenever we do a significant review of a service like this, it's important to bring that together and then provide an opportunity to close the loop with all of those people who have been part of the review. And so the report that's presented for your noting is essentially designed to do that and to present a summary of the outcomes and to provide an opportunity for us to report back to all of those people who participated in the review. So the report is there for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in relation to the report? Okay. Councillor Buckley?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So I just have a question, Mr. McConnell, in regards to thank you for your explanation about the practical changes that will be implemented from this review. There were several different ideas put forward during the process with this review. And I assume that the costs involved with consultants, etc., would have been, I'm curious to know what that consultant and engagement costs were.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. So, ASAC Consultants was the consultants that we used for this piece of work. They're consultants that have undertaken similar reviews. There were several phases of work. The total of that work with ASC was about $85,000. That was a really important piece of work. As you indicated, we identified a whole range of models that could be considered in terms of how we move forward. And in fact, earlier in the process, the model that was certainly being favoured was one that would have provided still council ownership of the facility, but some greater flexibility and so on in its operation. It was the detailed financial modelling that was undertaken by AEC that helped to identify that in fact there were risks with that proposal, and so indeed in the end the strongest option was to stay with the current council managed approach and operating model. So it's one of those cases where some really important work was done and some money was spent to undertake that work, but what it's done is it's saved council from making a decision which might have been to go down a different route and incur costs and potentially a lesser performing sale yards. So in that respect, it's delivered us some important outcomes.
So just for clarification, that money spent, will that be recouped in the processes and changes that will be implemented in cost saving benefits into the future? Is that the outcome?
Thanks, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. Again, the sale yards on average tend to operate with a small surplus, and we'd expect that those costs would be recovered over time.
Thank you.
Any questions, Council? Okay. There is a recommendation. Oh,
Sorry.
A question? Oh.
Sorry,
Question?
Mayor, thank you, and through you.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Mr McConnell. How many reviews have there been of the Livestock Exchange in the last 10 years?
Thanks, Councillor Esman, and through you, Mayor. This is the only review that I'm aware of, and the CEO has been here longer than I. Yep.
And same with me, but it's one we probably need to take on notice
Yep.
to make sure we've got a thorough investigation, but it's the only one of this level of detail that has been undertaken to our awareness for some time.
Okay, thank you. It's probably because it's taken a fair while that it feels like. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Eastman. Any other questions, councillors? Just make sure. No, okay. There is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor White. And a seconder to move the motion. Councillor Travascus, thank you. Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr McConnell, for your presentation. This is something that we have been working on for some time, and I would urge councillors to support this recommendation because I truly believe that we have actually landed in the right place. Very few council enterprises actually show a profit to council, but this one does, which is good. There's a lot of money invested in those sale yards now with all overhead cover and soft floor, and of recent times we've been getting very good numbers of livestock through now. I think it's really good to see that council themselves and the staff who operate that facility have a good working relationship with the agents, who then have a good relationship with their clients. So they form the magnet that brings livestock through that exchange, and the staff at the facility, the council staff, then do a lot of the processing work after after drafting, and it's just I'm pleased that it's landed where it has, because there were options where there could be a third party involved to help run it, but all I could see from that was more cost to council and less profit at the end of the year. And just to perhaps give you an idea of the magnitude of the net that this exchange has, is that at the recent store sale a couple of weeks ago, some livestock that were presented actually went all the way to Dubbo to a feedlot, which means we attract a group of buyers that are well interstate, and that's not uncommon. And of course, we've one of the recent innovations has been to also have the sheep sale on the same day as sales sheep sale, but a different time in the day. So that's doubling the amount of stock available to buyers, and it's brought more buyers to our sale yards and to sale, and it's producing much better prices than ever before. So with that, I'll just would ask councillors to support this, because being a very large area of East Gippsland and heavily reliant on the produce of sheep and cattle that come out of this area and beyond. Monero cattle often come through our sale yards as well. So as I said, we've landed in I believe in a really good place, and by doing what we're doing, we're also supporting the agents in the hard work they do, and all of the producers in our shire and beyond. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor White. And Councillor Travascus, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I concur with Councillor White. I think it hasn't been a wasted operation. I think it's shown that what was happening is good, and I think it's also opened up some areas that the council staff have been able to use in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Travascus. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, and would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor. Just briefly through you. I concur with what Councillor White said. I'm really pleased to see our agricultural dryland farmers being given the support they are through this facility, that it can make money, that it's run locally, and as Mr McConnell said, it's such an important investment, even though it seems a lot, to be shown that what you're doing is the right thing, doing it well. It's nice to have that confirmed, what people believed anyway. So thank you for your work, and congratulations.
Thanks, Councillor Eastman. Any other councillors? Okay, just checking. All right, councillors, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The next report is item 5.1.2, which is the 21-year lease at 70 to 78 Lucknow Street, East Bairnsdale. Mr McConnell, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report seeking your authority to enter into a 21-year lease with GJAC for the use of 70 to 78 Lucknow Street in East Bairnsdale, and that includes the refurbishment and ongoing maintenance of the facility. The facility has been used as a kindergarten for a number of years, the East Bairnsdale kindergarten. It's been vacant for some time, and during that time the vacant building has been subject to extensive vandalism and is in a state of disrepair. Council's been approached by GJAC seeking to lease the property and for use as a children's services as well as other related items. And it's proposed, the request from GJAC, and it's proposed in this case, is for council to enter into a lease with GJAC for a period of 21 years. And if there is a lease over 9 years, then the resolution of the council is required for that. So hence the purpose of this report. GJAC's request for a longer lease really is to make it worth their while to invest the capital that's required to bring the building into a serviceable condition. So we think in that respect it's a good outcome for both ourselves and for GJAC to be able to use the facility in that way. So you have a recommendation before you seeking your approval for this 21-year lease to GJAC and also authorising CEO or Delegate to undertake the measures that follow on from that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in regards to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Eastman?
Oh, sorry.
Legacy. Okay, thank you. No questions? I don't see any questions. Okay, do I have a mover for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And do I have a seconder for the... Thank you, Councillor Allen. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
I would, Mayor. I'd like to speak in support of this recommendation. For anyone familiar with the old East Bairnsdale kindergarten site, as we've heard tonight, hasn't operated for some time and it's looking a bit sad and needs a bit of love. But of course it remains an important council asset. And look, this lease up for approval tonight really provides long-term certainty for the tenant, in this case GJAC, that will support economic activity and employment within our municipality. Importantly, it extends beyond the lease and the services that they plan to provide there. It gives them the security of tenure that the organisation needs to invest in that facility with confidence and expand those services for the long term. And those investments can translate into employment opportunities, skills development and greater workforce participation within our community. So I think this proposal also delivers broader community benefits by supporting that local economic activity and helping ensure services and opportunities remain accessible for residents in East Bairnsdale and beyond. I believe this recommendation represents a sensible balance between good asset management, economic development and positive community outcomes, and I'm pleased to support it. And I think one of the main reasons I really want to support it is that participation in the workforce is really critical for our region. We've got some sectors of our economy that are desperate for people to work in them, and this will provide good childcare services and allow more people to get back to work and get on with the job. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Lowe, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I think the statement that it's looking a little bit sad is actually an understatement. We were out there last Thursday at Hoddenot Street and the place is really, really sad. So this gives an opportunity to restore and allow the community to use what is otherwise a very good asset that's just been deteriorated because they had no tenants. The fact that we can provide a 21-year term, they will restore the place and maintain it, I think is a great outcome, and the fact that it also makes use of an asset that's laying there idle is really the most important part of the whole proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. Would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? No? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The last report for Assets and Environment for Mr McConnell is item 5.1.3, which is the East Gippsland Shire Council submission to the draft Victorian Waterway Management Strategy. Thank you, Mr McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report that's seeking your endorsement of a submission that's been made to Victoria's draft Victorian Waterway Management Strategy. Due to the very tight timelines of the public exhibition period, in order to make a submission before the closing date, the submission was made as an officer's submission, and the opportunity is now with your endorsement to add that greater weight to that, and and then to advise DECA of that endorsement by council. The Waterway Management Strategy as a draft is, provides that overview of the key issues affecting waterways across Victoria, and so it is a statewide strategy. One of the things we've focused on as part of that is the resourcing that will be required for proper implementation of this. There are a range of issues in there in terms of clarity of responsibilities and similar as well. However, I think one of the things that we've highlighted is the importance of the waterways in East Gippsland and the Gippsland Lakes, both in terms of the underlying health of those systems, but also their economic value to the region, both in terms of extractive uses for agriculture and drinking and other things, and the need to balance that with the environmental outcomes. And as importantly, the health of the lakes underpins, I won't say all, but a significant part of our tourism sector in East Gippsland. And so for those reasons, it is quite important. And I would note that as part of that submission, we've included advocacy in relation to sustained funding for works to improve the health of the Gippsland Lakes. So that's, again, really important thing to highlight. So, councillors, before you is the submission and the recommendation to endorse that submission. Certainly happy to take any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions, clarification in relation to the report? Okay, I see none. There is a recommendation, so I'll now call on someone to move. Thank you, Councillor Crook, and someone to second. Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support Council's submission to the draft Victorian Waterway Management Strategy. I think this is an important submission because it recognises essentially what we already know, that healthy waterways are fundamental not just to our environment but to our economy and to our way of life. And as we've heard, the Gippsland Lakes, together with the major river systems that feed them, are among our region's most valuable natural assets. They support tourism and recreation, agricultural biodiversity and cultural values, and really the livability of our communities. This submission rightfully calls for stronger climate adaptation planning, for better protection of environmental water flows, and for more proactive management of high-value waterways, such as the Gippsland Lakes. This is an important piece of work, as the final strategy will provide Victoria's framework for our and other regions to develop our regional catchment strategies, done locally by the Catchment Management Authority, that help us look after and sustainably use and enjoy our precious waterways. I think probably most importantly, as we've heard, this submission acknowledges the deep connection that our community has with the Gippsland Lakes. They're not just an environmental asset, they're a part of our identity. They support local jobs, attract visitors, provide recreation opportunities and contribute enormously to the character of East Gippsland and current and future generations. And I guess for those reasons, I'm happy to support the submission and commend it to the councillor group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And would you like to speak to the motion? Thanks, Councillor Eastman.
Briefly, Mayor, thank you, and through you. I concur with Councillor Crook's assessment of the strategy and congratulate the officers on putting forward such a comprehensive submission in such a short time frame. It certainly covered off on a lot of the issues that I know councillors have been concerned about. Recognise the importance of our waterways to East Gippsland, to our economy and our people broadly, but it also looks at issues with regulation more generally and the potential impacts on all of Gippsland's waterways and oceans in the way it's assessed policy-driven regulation of waterways that actually impact on environmental outcomes. So I congratulate you on identifying a lot of issues and giving the state some things to consider more deeply before they make decisions such as reducing the areas that they're committing to Ramsar wetlands and whatever. So thank you very much for what you've done.
Thanks, Councillor Eastman. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. And would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Was that a Bernie? Yep, thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms McConnell. We'll now move on to reports from the Place and Community Directorate and invite Mr Richards forward. Oh, no, Miss... Am I on that one? Am I on the right one?
Sorry, Mayor.
Have I missed one? Okay.
Missed one?
I've missed one, okay. Apologies. Not yet. 5.2. Look at me go. Here we go. We'll now move on to 5.2.1. Planning and Development. It's the council policies for review. So welcome to Mr Stevenson and Ms Chester. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So, councillors, before you is a report titled Planning and Development Council Policies for Review. This report seeks Council's adoption of an amended planning delegations policy, development plan policy and planning compliance policy. The planning delegations policy has been amended to remove planning consultation meetings in an effort to streamline processes and provide more meaningful engagement opportunities for our communities. The development plan policy has been amended slightly to be clearer on how we process and engage on new and amended development plans. And the planning compliance policy has been amended to be clearer about Council's roles and responsibility in planning compliance and to embed general principles about how and when we take action on compliance matters. Kalindi is present tonight to take any questions of a technical nature that you might have, and the report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions? Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Chris and Kalindi, to you. Page 5 of 12 of the changes to planning delegations refers to call-ups of planning permit applications. I understand Council requires 3 councillors to call up a decision within 7 days of it being made. Looking at other councils across Victoria, there's quite a bit of variation in that. Can you explain why it's so tight in East Gippsland compared to, for example, Latrobe City, and if the 3 councillors and only 7 days is common?
Thank you for your question, Councillor Eastman, and through you, Mayor. So that part of the policy has been in place for quite a few years now, and that's not something we were proposing to amend as part of the changes before you. I wasn't the planning manager, nor did I work here then. However, my understanding is that it was negotiated with the council at the time about what those delegations should look like, and that 7 days was considered reasonable given the tight timeframes we have under the Planning and Environment Act to make decisions. In terms of the number of councillors, honestly, I wasn't privy to how and why that came about. I did do some research with the other Gippsland councils as part of my planning delegations policy review, and I have tried to align any of the changes I proposed with what other councils are doing, but again, that wasn't part of the policy that I was proposing to change.
One more, if I may. And I'm sorry for these late questions, but they're fairly timely. Were a proposal to be made to change that call-up policy, how would that play out in the future? Like, how might that be done?
Similarly to tonight, so we at Council, we have to review our internal policies from time to time. Governance remind us when they're due for a review. These 3 particular policies were, and obviously the biggest changes with the planning delegations policy, which was based on feedback from this councillor group and other users and community members that have dealt with the planning department over the last kind of 6 to 12 months. So similarly, if this council wanted to change any internal policy, that could be done by discussion with the relevant manager and CEO, and then it would have to come before council for a decision.
Thank you.
Did you want to add something?
I'm happy to just add from a governance perspective, council has the ability to review policies at any time. The process we'd have is either a discussion with myself or through a notice of motion where you'd call for a report to review a policy and then it'd bring it back through that cycle. So whilst we have some statutory and some timeframes that we've set for the review of our policies, we can review them more frequently. What we can't do them is review them less frequently than that timing that we've set. So for most of them, they need to be reviewed every 4 years. So we need to make sure we're reviewing our policies within that framework of at least every 4 years. So you could say that you'd like it reviewed in a much shorter time frame again. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, I see none. So we do have a recommendation in the report. So I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Anyone? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And a seconder? Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Certainly, I'd like to speak in support of this recommendation. Councillors, good governance requires council policies to remain contemporary, relevant and aligned with both legislative requirements and community expectations. Regular policy reviews are an important part of ensuring that our decision-making framework remains effective and fit for purpose. While council reviews or policy reviews may not always attract significant public attention, they are nonetheless important. Clear and up-to-date policies help improve consistency in decision-making, they reduce unnecessary complexity and provide greater confidence for those seeking to invest, build and create opportunities across East Gippsland. Strong planning policy also plays an important role in supporting housing, economic development and workforce participation. Communities and businesses are more likely to invest when they can navigate a planning system that is transparent, efficient and supported by modern policies. I thank the officers for their work in reviewing these policies and ensuring that they continue to support good governance and positive outcomes for our community. And I'm pleased to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook and Councillor Allen. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to start by thanking officers for their work on this. And I think that the changes that are proposed are pretty sensible. And I draw your attention to PCMs, for example, where over recent times we've had occasions where even though there's been objections, we've gone to a planning consultation meeting, no one's turned up. And, you know, it's a waste of your time, it's a waste of councillors' time, and it entails a lot of work. So I think what you're proposing here is a good way forward. And I would note too that Latrobe, I believe, and Wellington, all decisions are made by delegation. We're pretty fortunate or unfortunate, as the case may be, that decisions do come to council for decision, and that's not the case in every council. So thank you for the work you've done.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Stevenson, and thanks, Calindy. We'll now move on to reports from Place and Community. The first item is 5.3.1, Agriculture Sector Advisory Committee, minutes of the 21st of May 2026. Mr. Richards, could you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report that presents the unconfirmed minutes from the Agricultural Sector Advisory Committee meeting held at 21st of May 2026. A range of matters were discussed, including pest animal management, with strong support for a more coordinated approach, an update on Council's plantation position paper, emerging agricultural matters, including the impact of fuel costs on farm businesses and current bird flu monitoring activities, as well as the proposed Now an Hour game meat hub pilot, and an update on the East Gippsland Livestock Exchange operational model review. So these unconfirmed minutes are presented for Council to receive and note. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, any questions or clarification? Okay, I see none. There is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor White. And do I have a seconder for the motion? Okay, thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. Yeah, well, they are a true reflection. I was there, and these events did happen. I would just like to hark on one part of it, in that for many of the meetings, the government vet has talked about bird flu, and at the time they were still off the Australian coast on, I think it might be Heron Island or something like that, these migratory birds. And Di Phillips would say, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And of course what's happened in the last couple of weeks, we do have bird flu. So, you know, there's a function here that, you know, we're being alerted as a well, actually a coastal shire, that to keep a lookout for this. And of course, we've not had any instances at this stage, but we just don't know when that might happen to our part of the world. But it just shows how the advisory committee they're getting involved in feral animals and all sorts of other things that are impacting our agricultural communities and our farms. So I've always been a big supporter of this group. Whereas at this stage now we have some younger people on the committee, and they are very bright minds, and I encourage them to continue to participate. So I'd also encourage the council to acknowledge that these minutes are accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. And Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'll speak to the motion, Mayor, and just a brief reflection on the pest management and opportunities with connecting agencies and landholders to promote what is indeed an important process of protecting agriculture, but it's also an opportunity to reflect on the lack of management, humane management around our wild horses, which is currently a very poignant topic with the current slaughter of horses up in the high country. And it's an opportunity for this council at some point to support the agricultural committee and also its region by promoting our position for humane management of those horses. So I support the motion in front of us, and yes, that's all I need to say on that matter for now.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to reports from the Business Excellence Directorate, and welcome Mr. Philippou to the table. Thank you, Phil. We're up to item 5.4.1, which is CON 2026 1797 Public Space Closed Circuit TV Maintenance and Support Panel of Providers. And I'll ask Mr. Philippou to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled CON 2026 1797 Public Space Closed Circuit TV Maintenance and Support Panel of Providers, which is seeking approval to award contracts to the preferred tenderers, establishing a panel of providers for the provision of CCTV network maintenance and support services. The key points of the report for Council to consider are: Council is seeking to establish a non-mandatory CCTV panel of providers to support the maintenance, supply, installation and upgrade of CCTV infrastructure across public and corporate sites. The panel will cover existing CCTV equipment at 20 public spaces across Bairnsdale and Lakes Entrance, future community safety sites as identified with Victoria Police, and 27 council corporate locations across the Shire. CCTV supports community safety, protection of council assets, law enforcement investigations, public confidence in shared community spaces. The panel arrangement will support the ongoing maintenance, enhancement and reliable operation of council's CCTV infrastructure across public spaces and council facilities, ensuring these systems continue to meet operational and community safety objectives. Engagement of suppliers from the panel will occur on an as-needed basis in accordance with Council's procurement policy provisions for panel arrangements. 6 tenders were received, with 5 tenderers recommended for appointment to the panel and 1 assessed as non-conforming. Also joining me this evening online is our Acting Chief Information Officer, Sharon Jankowiak, and our Coordinator Cybersecurity and Infrastructure, Byron Edmonds. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, this report does contain confidential attachments, so please remember that if you wish to discuss any of the contents, we need to move into a closed session. But are there any questions of clarification in relation to the report? Okay. We'll move on. There is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Travascus. Councillor Farquhar, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Through you, Mayor, I'd just like to congratulate Phil for the work on this, and the security of our communities is held upmost, and I believe this will enhance that security, and hopefully everything will turn out all right with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And Councillor Travascus, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It's a shame that we need this sort of surveillance, but I think we have to. But it can not only be used for catching criminals or whatever else, but it can actually be a benefit to people in medical need or something like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Travascus. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. Would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Okay, in that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The next report is item 5.4.2, a review and rescission of council policies. Thank you, Mr Philby.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Review and Rescission of Council Policies, which is seeking Council's approval to formally rescind 6 council-adopted policies that have been identified as either superseded, more appropriately governed through alternative operational documents. The key points of the report for Council to consider are: the proposed rescissions do not remove council oversight or governance arrangements. Council will continue to set strategic direction through the council plan, strategic documents and council resolutions, while oversight remains through legislation, reporting frameworks, delegations, management policies and operational controls. The review supports a more contemporary and efficient governance framework by reducing duplication, removing unnecessary administrative burden and ensuring matters are governed through the most appropriate mechanism. This allows operational documents to be updated more efficiently in response to legislative, technological and industry changes. The 6 policies proposed for rescission are Advocacy Policy, Coastal Inundation and Erosion Planning Policy, Council Marinas Power Policy, Media Policy, Public Space Closed Circuit Television Surveillance Policy and Quick Response Capital Fund Policy. In each case, alternative governance arrangements remain in place. These include council strategies, statutory and planning controls, management policies, operational procedures, legislative requirements, reporting frameworks and established oversight mechanisms. The review has confirmed that rescission of these policies will not create a governance, compliance or service delivery gap. This report is not about removing controls or reducing accountability. Rather, it is about ensuring council-adopted policies are reserved for matters requiring council-level governance, while operational matters are managed through the most appropriate and responsive governance instruments. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in relation to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. My question is it possible to confirm that rescinding these policies won't reduce council oversight or public transparency and safeguards? And can you identify where each policy's key controls will now sit?
Thank you, Mayor. Given the policies sit right across the organisation, perhaps I would answer that one for Councillor Buckley.
Thank you,
I'll point you to the report, which each section sort of takes you through, and a briefing that council has received as recently, I think, as last week, where those controls were outlined for the councillors. And my apologies if you missed that, Councillor Buckley.
Oh, no, I didn't. I think this is a legitimate question,
okay.
CEO.
So if you look at the advocacy policy was seen as actually curtailing council's ability to respond swiftly to changing conditions, because you would need a change in policy. So it doesn't create a governance or compliance or service delivery gap, because our advocacy matters are still brought before council. If we look at the coastal inundation and erosion planning policy, you'll see in the report it is now been superseded by changes to the state planning framework, including the marine and coastal policy and amendment VC 210. So there are still those oversight mechanisms that are part of the planning scheme that we must use. If I talk to the marina power policy, you can see in the report that there is still governing management policies and maintain council's commitment to safety, compliance and risk management, while enabling operational requirements to be updated more efficiently as standards, practices and operational needs evolve. So therefore, with that one, we're working with standards and regulations that are set for the use of power, especially in a marine environment. In terms of the media policy, when we looked at the media policy, excuse me, I'll just take a little glass of water. If we look at the media policy, it was a mix of requirements of staff and some guidelines for councillors. The requirements of staff are now enshrined in an operational policy, which is more appropriate. And the actions of councillors are captured in the code of conduct that councillors are required to sign up to. And in the terms of the public space closed circuit television surveillance policy, you will see it's been superseded by a consolidated surveillance framework, which has already been adopted at a management level. So there's already the framework for how we manage public space closed circuit TV and our surveillance in public spaces. And finally, the quick response policy and the capital fund policy was set up when we didn't have much oversight in the way we were moving money and funding small projects within the capital environment. That's now caught in the way that we use our delegations, our financial delegations, which are set through policy and also through the way that we are reporting on the holding account and the use of funds to the council on a monthly basis. So I believe that addresses your question. I understand from a public transparency perspective, councillors want to make sure that the community understands that this doesn't remove council oversight. It just was seen as red tape that duplicated other oversight mechanisms that were already there. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Buckley.
Well answered. Thank you, CEO.
Any other questions, councillors? Okay, I see none. I'll now call on a councillor to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And a seconder for the motion, Councillor Crook. Thank you. Councillor Farquhar, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Mayor. And I think it's just a clear case of out with the old, in with the new. Bit of housekeeping going on here, and it's good to see that we are updating policies and not hanging on to old dated policies that just sit there and do nothing. So congratulations on the team for doing the review.
Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just quickly, Mayor, to agree with Councillor Farquhar that this is largely procedural in nature, seeking to remove outdated policies which have now been updated, superseded or functionally replaced. Means that the policies up for removal are already obsolete and no longer required. They're the council equivalent of sawdust, so happy to see them removed.
Thanks, Councillor Crook. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. And would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Our next item is item 5.4.3, the Council Resolutions Register. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Council Meeting Resolution Register, which is seeking council to note the resolution registers provided at attachments 1 to 4 to the report. The key points of the report for council to consider are: Council's Chief Executive Officer is responsible for ensuring that the decisions of the Council are implemented without undue delay. Reporting on the implementation of Council resolutions is a vital measure of Council's performance and demonstrates transparency and accountability to the community. 3, sorry, I forgot the numbering, the previous 2. Number 3, for the period 1 April to 30 June 2026, there were 26 open resolutions, including 3 resolutions for noting only, of which 23 have been completed and 3 are in progress. And there were 3 closed council resolutions which have all been completed. Number 4, attachments 3 and 4 to the report also provides an update on any outstanding resolutions from the previous report which was presented to council at its meeting on 19 May 2026. And 5, finally, councillors, just a reminder that attachments 2 and 4 to the report are confidential, so any discussion or questions relating to those attachments will require council to move into a closed session. The report is now presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in relation to the report or the recommendation? Councillor Buckley.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm seeking clarification in regards to the status. It says completed in regards to item, bear with me a moment while my computer adjusts itself, item 2.1, advocacy for Swiss Creek 24-hour health services. Can we just get clarification in regards to the completed status? Because we were asking for information to come back from the Minister for Health and local members of Parliament. Have we received any response in regards to this particular notice of motion?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. We have not received a reply. It's marked as complete because the actions that the officers had to undertake have now been completed. When and if the Minister replies is beyond our control, we will continue to follow up and seek a response, but it's marked as complete for this report because we have finalised our obligations which under the council resolution which we're to write to the Minister.
Okay, so it's a governance question, I guess, that I have in regards to that. Is it actually complete if there hasn't been a response?
I believe so, because there are some things that are beyond our control. There's another one in there around a planning scheme amendment where we've marked it as complete because it's sitting with the Minister for final determination. So again, that one is beyond our control. So the officers have done everything that they can in the power of council to finalise the action.
Thank you, CEO. I'll take this up with you at a later date to see what more we can do. Thank you.
Certainly. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Buckley. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, I see none. In that case, I'll now call on a councillor to move a motion. Have I got a move? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And a seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Briefly, thank you, Mayor. And again, councillors, this is a largely procedural matter, but nonetheless important in terms of transparency and accountability. The resolution register makes sure that resolutions made by this council are acted upon and not forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I need to say that we actually have been doing a bit, 29 resolutions in 3 meetings. So we have been, earning our keep somewhat.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. Councillors, is the motion opposed? Okay, I see none. Would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? No, we're all quiet. In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. And the last report for tonight is item 5.4.4, the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes. Thank you, Mr Philpott.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report titled Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes for noting. The key points of the report for Council to consider are: the Audit and Risk Committee is an independent advisory committee to Council established under Section 53 of the Local Government Act. The committee meets quarterly and its role is to monitor, review and advise Council on the standard of its financial control, risk management and corporate governance. The committee's charter outlines the functions and responsibilities of the committee in assisting Council to fulfil its oversight and corporate governance responsibilities. Presentation of committee meeting minutes demonstrates Council's ongoing commitment to transparency and accountability and represents an opportunity to further enhance community understanding and trust in Council's deliberative processes. This report presents the confirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on Monday, 25 May 2026 for noting. The report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification about the report or recommendation? No? I see none. In that case, I will ask for a mover of the recommendation. Come on, team. Thank you, Councillor Farquhar. And a seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Farquhar, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mayor. I think the Audit and Risk Committee is pretty self-explanatory and the report is quite clear. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just to thank the independent members on the committee and recognise the important function that it performs for Council.
Thank you. Councillors, is the motion opposed? I see none. Would anyone else like to speak for the motion? In that case, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is item number 6, which is urgent business. CEO, I believe there is no urgent business for tonight's meeting.
We have none, Mayor.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is item 7, confidential business. We have one item listed in the agenda as confidential business. Councillors, I need a motion that Council close the meeting to the public in accordance with the provision of section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following item, which is item 7.1, contract matter. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Allen. And a seconder? Councillor Eastman, thank you. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Eastman, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillors, is the motion opposed? I see none. In that case, I will check to see anyone else wants to speak to it. No? Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. Members of the gallery? Oh, no longer with us. So we now need to move into confidential business. Thank you to the members that were in the gallery for their attendance tonight, and to those online. We're going to move into confidential business now. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. This concludes the proceedings for tonight's meeting. Thank you to everyone who attended in the public gallery and to those who watched online. I now declare the meeting closed at 7:36.